Today on an all-new Dr. Phil.
I didn't ask you nicely!
Their relationship is toxic.
I have a hard time looking at him without feeling hate.
You were threatening to beat her with a belt, and then you said...
I'm letting you die.
That was said in anger.
You tried to stuff a bleach-soaked rag down her throat?
I did. In a fit of rage, I shoved it in her mouth.
This is a dysfunctional situation. You don't want your children raised in a broken home.
Yes.
Rather have them with a broken arm?
I fear if I leave him, he gets visitation with my kids alone.
This family is on fire. We need to put out the fire. Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by. We'll count you down.
Today is going to be a changing day in your life.
5, 4.
Get ready to take care of you. Well, Danielle and Josh have been married for almost 6 years, but marital bliss, it is not. It is toxic, it is broken, and it is abusive. Danielle claims Josh has cheated on her with 60 different people. He also hits, punches, pushes, and kicks her, and a few weeks ago, he choked her until she thought she was going to die. All of that in front of their 2 young children. Now, look, make that soon to be 3 children because Danielle is 13 weeks pregnant. So why doesn't Danielle just leave Josh? Well, she says Josh has been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and she loves him. But these days she's wondering if he's using his diagnosis as an excuse for all of his bad behavior. Take a look.
Living with my husband, Josh, is totally toxic. Our marriage is broken. We fight daily.
You would get in my face?
He's verbally and physically abusive toward me. He tells me I'm a bad mom and has wished me to have a miscarriage.
You don't scare me.
I'm letting you die.
We have 2 boys, they're 2 and 4, and I have an 18-year-old daughter from a previous marriage. Right now, I'm 13 weeks pregnant with Josh's 3rd child. For some reason, Josh's violence increases when I'm pregnant. He's choked me, he's hit me, he's slapped me.
I can't go back and change what I did. I can only change what I do from now on.
You should see the behavior and say, me attacking my pregnant wife is not normal. One time, Josh and I had an argument. I was holding my 2-year-old son. He grabbed him out of my arms, ran outside, so I went after him and Josh physically attacked me. Josh pulled my shirt over my head, exposed my breast. He punched me in my back and then drove off with our son. When the fighting gets really heated, Josh's bipolar disorder gets triggered. He loses control, becomes more violent. Blaming bipolar is exactly what you do because you don't take the actions to fix that.
I want nothing more than to be a bipolar person that leads a normal life.
I'm starting to believe that a lot of his behavior is his own choices and not because of his disorder. 2 years ago, Josh and I were separated and he went on to some hookup site and started chatting with some girl. She told him that she was 13 and they arranged to meet in a parking lot. The whole thing was a giant sting operation. He was arrested by the police. Josh got 2 years probation and had to register as a sex offender. I love my husband, but I have 0 respect for him. I stay for my kids because I don't want them to be raised in a broken home. Any other person in my position would have left him by now.
Danielle, that's hard to watch, right?
It is.
But it's got to be harder to live.
It's very hard to live. It's a challenge every day.
You say it's been going on for 7 years, but you've been married for 6. So that means you knew the nature of this man before you married him.
I did. But we loved each other and we thought that we could work past it.
What made you think that?
When you're in love, you think that anything's possible, and we tried marriage counseling prior to us getting married. Marriage counseling did do well for a little while, but the behavior came back.
And you say you stay because of your children because you don't want your children raised in a broken home.
Yes.
Rather have them with a broken arm?
You know, and that's why we're trying to get the help for our marriage now, because we had the 2 boys and we're expecting another one. So we want the behavior, we want our marriage to be a healthy, happy marriage before it gets to that point.
Has it ever been a happy marriage?
It was. We have periods of happiness.
Your boys are 4 and 2,
Yes.
and one on the way, 13 weeks. He tells you you're a bad mom and wishes you would have a miscarriage.
Yes.
So he's told you that during this time. He's told you, I hope this baby dies.
Yes.
What do you say to yourself when he says that to you?
I was devastated because I've suffered so many losses. So to wish me to lose another one, I was devastated.
And he's violent with you physically, mentally, emotionally, but he's really violent with you physically. And you say that gets worse when you're pregnant.
Yes.
One of your questions to me was, okay, is this bipolar or is he just a really bad guy? Right?
Yes.
You're wondering if bipolar is causing all of this.
Absolutely.
Who diagnosed him?
His psychiatrist, when he was young.
And did they put him on a treatment plan?
Yes. And for 2.5 years, I told him that his meds were ineffective, and he refused to deal with that until last month when he attacked me, and I told him that was enough's enough, and I was done. So he finally sought a new psychiatrist that put him on different meds that are doing better than the last meds, but still not completely 100% effective.
Well, so your question is it mental illness or is what? What's the other alternative?
Is it just his nature to be this way, or is it because he's bipolar?
Well, it doesn't have to be either or. I mean, I'm from Texas, and I mean, dogs can have ticks and fleas. I mean, it can be more than one thing. You know, you can have a mental illness, and you can have just a real mean spirit about you at the same time. How long ago was it that he tried to shove a bleach-soaked rag down your throat?
About a month ago.
About a month ago. Okay. Look, bipolar doesn't, you know, that might be part of a reason, it's an excuse, but it's no explanation. That doesn't, you can go through all of the bipolar histories in the world, and shoving a bleach-soaked rag down your wife's throat is not a recurring theme. So that's unique to him. Okay, so that doesn't explain that. And he tried to burn the house down?
Yes.
With the children in it?
Yes.
This was within the last few weeks.
Yes.
Do you feel a responsibility to these children?
I do.
He's tried to kill their mother, and he tried to burn the house down with them in it. Do you feel a duty to protect them?
Absolutely. I do. I feel like they're not safe in our situation at all.
I'm a mandated reporter because let me tell you, in all states, all 50 states, there's some version of this definition of negligence. Failing to protect a child in his or her care from inflicted physical, mental, or sexual injury caused by the act of another. So you have these children in your care. You have a duty to protect them from inflicted physical, mental, or sexual injury caused by the acts of another. And now you have someone that is a registered sex offender, and this was with children, right?
Yes.
But yet they put him back in with your children.
Yes.
He's tried to burn the house down with them in it. So this appears to me that he lapses into what can only be described as a clear and present danger to your children. And you're failing to protect them from that. That's crime. We'll talk about that more. Danielle says Josh is aggressive, angry, jealous, psychotic. Josh says Danielle is vindictive and bossy and verbally abusive. We're going to meet Josh after the break and see what he has to say about all this.
A fight happened because Danielle insisted that I sue my previous employer for what she thinks is wrongful termination. She ended up on the floor with my hands around her throat.
Honestly, I have a hard time looking at him without feeling hate.
It hurts. I blacked out, and that's all I remember about the incident.
Last month, Josh and I had a huge fight. We were fighting over him being fired from his job. Josh got up off the floor abruptly, grabbed my wrist like this, and yanked me off of the chair onto the floor. I'm on the floor, and he just grabbed my neck and was choking me. And I kept saying, Josh, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. And I'm trying to pry his hands off my neck. He finally let go. I was just sitting here stunned, shocked of what happened, and then he left. That's the first time I truly feared Josh.
Well, Josh says Danielle blames him for everything wrong in their marriage, and it's just not fair. He claims he tries to warn Danielle when he's on the verge of violence, but she pushes and pushes until he explodes.
My marriage with Danielle is so unhealthy. I can admit that putting hands on my wife is completely inexcusable, but Danielle won't take responsibility for her actions towards me. I can't just snap my fingers and take it all away, and if I could, I would.
Honestly, he has said that so many times that I don't even believe it anymore.
I feel she starts most of our arguments. Danielle never lets up on a fight and never walks away. In these moments, I've pushed, slapped, and choked my wife. Danielle also gets physical during arguments. She'll bite me, even slap me.
He becomes physical with me, and so I do fight back in self-defense.
Unfortunately, the fights are in front of the kids. Once the fighting starts, things get ugly quick. I feel most of my issues are because of my bipolar disorder. I checked myself into the hospital for a mental evaluation, was out for 3 days, and I was fired for missing work. The fight happened because Danielle insisted that I sue my previous employer for what she thinks is wrongful termination. She ended up on the floor with my hands around her throat. I blacked out, and that's all I remember about the incident.
Honestly, I have a hard time looking at him without feeling hate.
It hurts. I stay with Danielle because I do love her. I love my kids. I want to work this out. I think we're at the point where it's now or never.
And I'm honestly not sure if I want that at this point.
Divorce has come up multiple times in arguments, but I really don't want that. I wouldn't get the visitation rights that I deserve with my kids. Danielle has made it very clear that she would keep my children from me.
Well, Josh, you guys have been together for 7 years, married 6, together for 7?
Correct.
And you've had a volatile relationship from the start.
More or less, yes.
Okay. And you've gotten help, and it helps at times for a while, and then it kind of reverts back.
Yeah, and we've been in marriage counseling, which helped, but we always tend to fall back on previous behaviors.
Mm-hmm. And you freely admit that you attack her physically.
Yes, I have attacked her physically, and I know that there's no excuse for that, bipolar or not. There's no reason to ever lay my hands on her.
What reason do you give yourself when you do it?
I feel like I'm so enraged. And like I said, I feel like it's almost like I black out and lose control. And I want to get a hold of that so that I don't lay my hands on her, so that doesn't happen.
You've been in relationships before her.
Correct. Yeah.
Did you do the same thing then?
It never got this bad, but they were volatile. You know, I did argue.
But you don't remember ever putting your hands on a woman before her?
No. Not that I can recall.
Well, that'd be something you'd recall.
I can't sit here and say that I didn't, but I don't recall ever laying my hands on a woman before now.
You say that Danielle won't take any responsibility for her actions and blames it all on you.
Correct. I feel like when I try to talk to Danielle about issues, about arguments that have happened, I feel like she kind of reflects the blame all on me. You know, if I hadn't have done this, if I hadn't have done that, you know, I'm the reason that we were arguing, you know, I definitely feel like she reflects blame a lot onto me.
Yeah. So some of what she does justifies what you do.
I don't think that
Triggers it.
it triggers. I don't think it justifies.
Okay. Well, what would you put on the list of things that would trigger you trying to set the house on fire with your children in it?
Well, the one thing is that when we start discussing an issue and it gets heated, I'll tell her, Danielle, just stop, so I can take time to calm down. And she won't just stop talking about, she'll keep going on and on and on. And I get to the point where I'm so furious and I'm so enraged that I lose control of myself.
The day that you decided to set the house on the fire with your children in it, you had an argument before that. Let's take a look at this video where Josh threatens you with a belt. Danielle's daughter, Caitlin, is doing the filming here.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Give it to me good. Make sure it counts. Because you're going to jail for it. Make sure it counts.
I have it on video either way.
Make sure it counts. Because you're going to jail. Go ahead. 7 years. Make sure it counts.
And I'm also telling your probation officer how you try to set the house on fire with a lighter with your family inside that I had to break so you wouldn't do it.
You don't scare me. You're mental idiot. You might
Miscarriage.
You might scare your mother. You don't scare me.
I hope that baby dies.
Doesn't matter because you won't have any claims to it. Not one single claim to it.
I'll take you down today to file the papers.
Okay, you were threatening to beat her with a belt?
Yes, I had a belt and I was threatening to hit her with it. Again, even me watching that video, it hurts me because I don't want to be that person. I know that's not truly who I am.
Well, you are what you do. You were threatening to beat her with a belt, and then you said, I hope the baby dies.
That was said in anger, and I honestly don't want that baby to die. That's my baby as well, regardless of what happens to us. I love my kids.
Y'all want this to stop before the kids are hurt.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well,
Absolutely.
I'm sorry to tell you that ship has sailed.
I agree. I agree.
That ship has sailed. Because this is not something that children just get over. It changes them, and it changes them in a lasting and meaningful way. Danielle and Josh agree that he has a sex addiction that's led not only to him cheating on her with what she says more than 60 people, but resulted with him being charged with soliciting a minor. All of this fighting is going on in front of the kids. I says it changes them in a lasting way. We're going to talk about all of this after the break because this is a dysfunctional situation.
Josh has probably cheated on me over 60 times.
I have a sex addiction that gets triggered when we argue. It's not that I want to cheat on her. However, being faithful is something I can't control.
The first time I found Josh was cheating on me, I was 2 days away from giving birth when I discovered the emails. Josh sent me to look for hookups. I felt like I had to push my anger aside because I needed him.
Danielle has been unfaithful with me with at least one person that I know of. I've forgiven her for being unfaithful, but trusting is another thing.
I think I cheated out of revenge. The person I cheated with was also giving me emotional support that I was not getting home with Josh.
Danielle and Josh agree that infidelity is partially to blame for destroying the trust in their marriage. I wrote down some key statements that you said. And the first one was, hoping if we fix things, kids won't remember the fighting. I said that ship has sailed because there's a lot of research about children that grow up in the midst of intimate partner violence, domestic violence, intimate partner violence, and there's something called the HPA axis. When children grow up in this, and I don't know that I've seen it as intense as what you two are doing, but it actually changes the anatomy of their brains. It has a cascading effect on the neurotransmitters in the brain, how the brain chemicals talk to each other, and the actual structure of the brain. Specifically, there's dysfunction at different levels of the hypothalamic, pituitary, and adrenal parts of the brain. That's called the HPA axis, which is involved in the stress response. So they're hypervigilant all the time. And so they're at higher risk for depression, anxiety, and even schizophrenia in adulthood. This is what you're doing right now. And it affects the brain even in infancy. So you're hoping they forget it. Their brain's not going to forget it. And that's going to have to be dealt with. So you don't have the right to do what you're doing, to do this in front of these children. It scares them, so much so that their biochemistry changes and it actually alters their brain. And I'm putting you on notice, there is physical and mental injury caused by these acts. The two of you are perpetrating physical changes in your children's brains right now. That's injury. And that's neglect. An injury to a child is crime. You tried to stuff a bleach-soaked rag down her throat?
I did, in a fit of rage, I did. I had just happened to have a rag that had cleaning chemical on it, and I shoved it in her mouth.
You need to straighten this up. You need to straighten this up. And this bipolar, this is very real. It does not explain what you are doing. Now, Danielle's daughter, Caitlin, believes her stepfather, Josh, is a pedophile who once did something so inappropriate to her that CPS removed her from her home. We'll meet her after the break.
There is never any peace in our home.
Stop trying to rip her stuff, Josh.
He can be a total monster. He was yelling at me so much that spit was coming out of his mouth and hitting my face. It was absolutely disgusting.
I hope that baby dies.
My relationship with my stepdaughter, Caitlin, is non-existent. I know that she wants me gone and she hates me. She says it all the time. Caitlin inserts herself constantly in my relationship with Danielle. I guess she feels like she needs to protect her mother.
About 4 years ago, Josh sent Caitlin a text message saying it was okay to think about him sexually. Caitlin told a friend whose mom called CPS. Caitlin was removed from our home for 4 months. I didn't leave Josh at the time because I was pregnant and I had no job. I felt I had no choice but to stay with him. I didn't want us to be homeless.
Well, Danielle's daughter, Caitlin, says her mom's relationship with Josh, she just says it's disgusting. She says it's broken, and she regularly begs her mother to leave Josh, but claims she always chooses him over her children.
My stepdad Josh is crazy, angry, and a terrible father. There is never any peace in our home. He can be a total monster, but psychopath would probably be a better word to describe how he acts. The most violent thing I've seen happen between my mom and Josh happened just last month.
Stop trying to rip her stuff, Josh. She's pregnant and doesn't have many clothes that fit her.
The fight broke out. He shoved a rag with bleach on it in her mouth. It was horrible. My mom knows that I want her to leave Josh. She's pregnant right now, so I really worry about my mom and the baby.
I hope that baby dies.
Usually when they start fighting, my little brothers run to my room and lock themselves in because they're very scared of Josh. Josh and I got into a fight the other night because he brought beers home after he was asked not to. I asked him to please calm down and stop yelling at my mom. He was yelling at me so much that spit was coming out of his mouth and hitting my face. When I was about 14, Josh texted me and asked if I ever thought of him sexually. I told him no, and he texted me again and said it was okay if I had thought about him sexually. I thought it was absolutely disgusting. My mom excused Josh's behavior by saying I would walk around the house in short shorts and tank tops. So it was my fault because I looked appealing. I think Josh is a pedophile. I mean, look at what he did with me and the other 13-year-old girl. The only reason that I haven't moved out yet is because I don't want to leave my brothers alone with Josh.
Caitlin, thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
This is not a fun topic.
No, not really.
You know, just to be clear, pedophile is not a right label because that describes people that are primarily or exclusively attracted to children. And so I don't mean to play semantics, but that's not, obviously not the case here. That doesn't mean the behavior is not inappropriate at all. I'm just saying that's not a right label. But there is hypersexuality and poor impulse control associated with bipolar. If you're bipolar, I don't know whether you are or not, but that certainly is an issue with that. Do you recall this interaction with Caitlin?
I do.
And what did you say about that?
I was horrified.
What did she say about it to you?
She said that she was really upset about it. And then after the 4 months were up and CPS allowed me to come back in the home, she told me to come back home. I didn't really have much of a choice but to come back home.
And you say that she doesn't want Josh to go to prison for a long time for, quote, a little abuse?
Yes, that's what she's told me.
Are you staying in this out of fear? Not wanting to raise these children alone? Finances? What? I mean, let's just be honest here, because let me tell you, we're up against it. And I want to help where I can, but we got to just put it on the table here, because if you think for a second that I'm down with leaving this 4-year-old and 2-year-old with you having to run interference and protect them in the midst of this chaos, listen, that's something I can't abide. I just can't do that. Like I said, I'm a mandated reporter. It's endemic upon me to either put something in place here that obviates this or reporting it, one of the two. But, you know, you see my point?
That's why I wrote in, because I know that I mean, I've seen your show. I know that you help people, and I wrote in because I know that the kids are not in a healthy space, and they need to be. They deserve to be.
Why is nobody doing anything about it? Because you're taking medication. Are you taking the medication?
Correct. Yes.
And within the last month, you've said you want your baby to die. You've choked her. You've stuffed a rag down her throat in bleach. You two have been physically combative. So whatever therapeutic regimen you're under is falling short.
Honestly, I fear if I leave him, he gets visitation with my kids alone, and that scares me more than my kids being with him in the home. Because I don't know what he's capable of.
Sure you do. You see it every day. Josh says his violence, sex addiction, and impulse spending are all due to his bipolar disorder. But does his diagnosis excuse all of these behaviors? No. He says he's not using it as an excuse. He said, look, I need to know, give me something to do. Tell me what to do. And I believe he truly is lost. I don't think he knows what to do. I have some suggestions after the break.
My bipolar disorder causes me to have issues with my impulses, like my sexual desires, my spending habits.
While we were separated, he took $2,000 out of our joint bank account. He's unsure what happened to the money.
When it comes to my anger, I get irritable, agitated, and I know it's coming. I try to warn Danielle, I really do. She needs to take my warnings more seriously.
My mom blames her own behavior, saying that if she would have shut her mouth, he wouldn't have hit her. I tell her that it's not all his disorder. A lot of it is the choices that he's making. There is no excuse for a man hitting a woman.
Well, Josh says he's been on multiple bipolar medications since middle school. and goes to regular therapy to try and stop his violent manic episodes. However, he says the only way to fully prevent an episode is to remove himself completely from a toxic situation. Now, you two trigger each other. And there's never any excuse for a man putting his hands on a woman in anger for any reason. I don't care how provocative she is or whatever. There's no excuse for what you're doing. And I'm concerned about both of you when things get physical. I'm concerned about you getting hurt or killed. I'm concerned about you winding up in prison for murder or manslaughter, and these kids being without both of their parents. There's a bad situation no matter how this turns out. And it's clear that this situation right now is so flammable that if the two of you are together in the same room under a roof, unless something changes, it's going to combust. This is going to go up. And, you know, to me, the best analogy I've got is like if your house was on fire and the fire department came by and said, well, let's talk about fire prevention. Well, no, let's talk about firefighting first. Our house is on fire. Could we put that out? And then we can talk about fire prevention. But right now, we need to talk about firefighting. This relationship is on fire. This family is on fire. We need to put out the fire right now. Then we can talk about how to prevent the relationship from burning down in the future. But right now, it's on fire, and these children are in the middle of it. And the only way to do that is you two need to be apart right now. There are two sides to this. This isn't all you. There's something I call outrageous overshadowing. And outrageous overshadowing is when one person's behavior is so outrageous that it overshadows the behavior of another. And you say and do things that you shouldn't say and do, but your behavior is so outrageous that it overshadows anything she does, so she gets a pass because you're stuffing a rag down her throat. I mean, people kind of don't pay much attention to what she said leading up to that. And you need to start figuring out why you have such poor impulse control, why you have such rage inside, why you have such emotional dysregulation. And whoever is putting you on this medication is not following through to recognize the fact that your behavior is not changing. You need to be the most active member of your treatment team. You need to say, look, I'm a member here of this treatment team. I want to know what we're doing. I want to know why we're doing it. I want to know what it's intended to treat. Teach me what's going on. What else can I do? What kind of therapy should I be in? You need to know everything about this. They can give you medication that turns you into a zombie, so you're just kind of sitting there like you got a buzz going on in your head, and then you don't aggress against anybody, but that's no answer. And they can give you something that doesn't take the anger and the edge off. That you need to figure this out. And look, you don't break habits. People turn to violence when they run out of socially acceptable ways to express themselves. And you need to figure out ways to cope with this and put up boundaries and express yourself in different ways. And you don't know how to do that. And you've been doing this, you said this, you've had problems with this since middle school.
Yeah, if not earlier.
So you need to figure out, you've just gone through life being a loudmouth bully. That's not who you are. That's not what you need to do. You need to figure out acceptable ways to express yourself. And you need to figure out what you need to do so you can be a responsible parent and put up boundaries where you don't accept anything other than being treated with dignity and respect. And I'm not saying this relationship won't work, but right now, this isn't even a relationship. The two of you are dangerous for each other. This situation is dangerous, but you can change this. And you can change this. And until you do, you two should not be together. You absolutely should not be together. And I'll talk about what that looks like when we come back. What I'm recommending is that you two call a timeout right now, and both of you hit a reset button and figure out what a relationship is supposed to be. You deserve to exist as a wife and a mother without fearing for your life. You deserve to be a wife and a mother without fearing that you're going to be called every name in the book, hit, choked, punched, kicked, and worrying about whether or not your children are going to have to watch their mother being beaten. You deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. And if that can't happen with the two of you cohabiting, then you need to not cohabit. And if you just say, all right, we're going to live separately, this won't fix itself. You need to work every single day. You need to be in support groups. You need to be in therapy. You need to be changing your medical regimen. You need to be doing everything you can possibly do to get this under control and find a new way to exist in this world. And you can do that. This is totally doable. If in fact you have a biochemical imbalance in your brain, if in fact you are bipolar and that is creating manic impulse control problems for you, this can be regulated. This doesn't have to be a problem for you. This can be managed. But the passivity with which it's being dealt with right now is totally unacceptable.
He's telling them the meds are working though. That's the problem. Is when they say, how are your meds working? He says, oh, they're doing fine.
Okay, well, I'm handling that with him right now, right?
Right.
We're going to do that. Can you do that?
I can do that.
Okay. And then once you do that, you're going to start to see things changing. And you shouldn't get back together until an independent professional, his doctor, tells you that in their professional opinion, it's safe to do so. Not from him, from the doctor. Fair enough? And you need some help and support in this as well.
I have a counselor that I see every other week.
Every other week?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Get a tape of this and show it to them. Let them see what's going on. I want to thank all of my guests today. For more information about today's episode, log on to drphil.com. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Speaking of Facebook, I check out my Facebook group called Dr. Phil Fanatics. That's P-H-A-N. It's a private group for superfans where you'll get the latest news first. I pop in there and talk to you guys, as you know. And don't forget, follow and subscribe to my podcast, Fill in the Blanks. I really try to provide tools and techniques. Right now, I'm talking about how to spot con artists. And check out Robin's podcast, I've Got a Secret with Rob McGraw, whether you're looking for the secret to keeping your head up or the neuroscience secrets of feeling good. Robin covers it all. Listen for free on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll see you next time. Stay safe.